Bhutan, Antonia from Croatia. That's amazing. Ishita from India. Good, good. Keep going. Okay, we have people from Kenya. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. All right. Let's start. Hey everyone, welcome to the Youth for Youth podcast series by the Mohanji Youth Club. I'm Anusha and we have Mohanish here today and will be hosting today's session. To share a little background, the MYC Crisis Management project was started with one main intention to offer free crisis disaster preparedness and awareness training to communities globally, focusing especially on children, teens, youth groups, and underprivileged communities. Our main focus areas were natural disasters, man-made disasters, and mental health crisis. As we started this project, we wanted to cover it in a very holistic way, which includes training, expression, and emotional resilience. So we developed a few key initiatives. The first one being ULEAD, which focuses mainly on disaster preparedness training, and that is mainly for educational institutions. Second is Stability and Survival Stories, a platform for young people who have undergone crisis to express themselves in a very creative way or in any form of non-violent expression. The third one being Mauna, which is a weekly meetup online or offline where youth come together, connect in silence, and that helps them detox their mind and eventually respond to any kind of crisis with greater calm and clarity. So we know that nowadays we've seen a lot in news regarding the heat waves happening all over and especially in Europe. So it has been rising, and and understanding if we can know or read a disaster before it happens is very important. And so we have taken the topic for today: reading a disaster before it happens, how satellites, maps, and a laptop can save lives. And we have our expert today with us, Susma Paudel. She's a civil engineer and researcher from Nepal, specializing in GIS, modeling, and climate data analysis. She's also youth ambassador for World Leaders Consortium and a member of Young Water Professional. She supports disaster risk reduction and youth-led sustainable development. Welcome, Susma, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Anusa. Thank you for this opportunity and for the wonderful introduction.
We are honored to have you today with us. Before we start our session with
Mhm.
our guest, I'd like to add that all our sessions are free for youth globally. So do feel free to get your friends and anyone who you may think wants to be heard, speak, ask questions to our expert, or simply listen. Yeah. Uh, Over to you, Susma.
Thank you, Anusa. Uh, let me let me tell you about how we are going today. First, we will delve deeper into the prepared presentation slides so that you can get into the code content and the details. And later, we will have some times for your question answer session. So I think now let's begin, right? Okay. Is the screen shared?
Yes.
Yeah. Hi everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, depending on where you are joining from. A quick question before begin. How many of you check the weather before going out today? Most of us do that without thinking, right? We trust it because someone collected data, analyzed it, and predicted what might happen. Now imagine doing something similar, not for tomorrow's weather or rain, but for floods, landslide, or droughts. That's exactly what today's session is about. And Namaste everyone. I'm Susma Paudel, civil engineering graduate, working with GIS and water data enthusiast. Today, I want to share something that changed how I see disasters. Nature usually leaves clues before striking. The challenge is knowing how to read them. Now, before we start, thank you to the MYC Crisis Management team. Small disclaimer, I'm not a disaster management expert. I'm still learning and I'm here to share what first inspired me. So, today's session is practical, beginner friendly, and I hope it sparks and speaks your curiosity. And as she have already introduced my details or introduction, but let me do it again. like I hope it won't sound like I'm flexing or something. Uh, am I audible?
Yes, yes,
Yes,
Sushma.
And is my screen share?
yes, yes.
Yeah, okay. Let me introduce myself. Hi everyone. My name is Susma Paudel, and I am sorry. Okay, I am Susma Paudel. I'm civil engineering graduate from Nepal. Alongside my studies, I have been fortunate to intern at the Nepal's Department of Water Supply and Sewerage Management, DWSSM. There, I work with GIS, GPS-based mapping, and water infrastructure data. My work involves organizing information about reservoirs, pipelines, taps, and water supply systems, and displaying all of that accurately on digital maps. If you are interested, I will later show how the website and how the dashboard is of um, was portal. So outside academics, I'm also involved with organizations such as the World Leaders Consortium as youth ambassador and young water professionals Nepal. This experience have allowed me to interact with people who are passionate about sustainable development, water security, and disaster resilience. But honestly, I'm still at the beginning of my learning journey. A few years ago, terms like GIS, satellite imagery, and remote sensing sounded extremely complicated to me. Today, I hope to show you that these ideas are actually much simpler than they first appear. And moving on to the next slide, here's our roadmap for today's session. We'll begin by understanding why reading disasters before they happen is so important. Then we will look at GIS and satellite imagery in the simplest way possible. After that, we will explore some of the methods experts use around the world. I will also share a real example from my own academic work so that you can directly get reference to. Towards the end, I will introduce several free tools that anyone can explore, even if you are new and if you have never worked with GIS before. And finally, we'll summarize everything we have learned before opening the floor for questions. And don't worry, today's session isn't meant to be high technical. Think of it as an introduction. If today's discussion interests you, perhaps we can organize a future hands-on workshop where we actually explore these tools together. Now, I would like to ask everyone a simple question. Have you ever watched the news and thought, that flood happened so suddenly, or nobody saw that landslide coming? I think everyone have thought about it just for once, right? But the truth is, many disasters don't actually happen suddenly. Our awareness happens suddenly. That's where the changes is, and that's where the transition is. Nature usually gives signals before something serious happens, like as you might have heard police officers saying, we found the thieves because they always leave something a clue. And similar like that, we can also relate it to the nature. Nature usually gives signal before something serious happens. Like, for example, rivers begin rising, rainfall becomes unusually intense, and the soil becomes saturated. Groundwater conditions change, some gaps is seen in the hillside, and many more. These all are the clues. Similarly, the problem is that human can't absorb every river, right? Every mountain and every village all at the same time. That's where satellites become incredibly valuable. They continuously observe our planet from space. They allow us to detect changes that would otherwise be impossible to monitor from the ground. And you can see on the screen that uh, these two numbers really stood out to me. According to the United Nations and World Meteorological Organizations, providing communities with just 24 hours of early warning can reduce disaster damage by roughly 30%. Think about that. Just one day, just 24 hours before, yet it can save lives, protect homes, and reduce economic loss. That's huge, right? So, even more interesting is that countries with strong early warning system experience disaster related mortality or deaths that's around 6 times lower. That tells us something very important. um Technology alone doesn't save lives, and that's true, but information save lives. Information right time, uh, the information delivered on the right time can save significant numbers of life, and technology helps that information to be delivered in the right time. So the question becomes, how do we actually collect that information? Let's begin with GIS. Now many people hear the term GIS and immediately think it's something very complicated. I thought the same, and but let me explain it. uh, But let me explain it using something very simple. Now, moving on to the next slide. Uh, have anyone heard about GIS before? If yes, then please, if you are too familiar, then can you write the full form of GIS in the chat box? Please. If yes, then please type. Good, good, Pranit, sir. And yeah, then you all might have seen it. So let's begin now. Uh, GIS, let me explain it using something very simple. Imagine you have, wait. Imagine you have several transparent sheets. On one sheet, you draw roads. On another sheet, you draw rivers. On another, you mark where people live. On another, you show elevation. Individually, each sheet tells one part of the story. But when you stack them together, you begin to notice patterns. You maybe like, let's take an example. Maybe a village is located close to a river. Maybe it is also located on a low-lying land. Maybe there's only one road leading into that community. Now you suddenly understand why that location might be vulnerable during flooding. You can analyze and you can assume, right? If the visualization is clear. That's essentially what GIS does. GIS stands for Geographic Information System, but in simple words, it's a way of bringing different kinds of location based information based in information together so we can make better decisions. That's why GIS is widely used for flood mapping, urban planning, water supply, transportation, environmental monitoring, and many other fields. Let me connect this with something I have personally worked on. During my during my internship at the Nepal's NWAS MIS unit, every water supply asset, whether it's a reservoir, public tap, a pipeline, or intake, is linked to its exact GPS location. Why is that important? Can you guys guess, or uh, can you analyze something? Can you give some logic or reason behind it? If yes, please comment down below so that it will be, if anyone is interested, they can just turn on their speaker and uh, tell the logic behind it. No one? Okay, it's yeah, okay. Uh, it is important because when engineers open the map, they immediately know where every piece of infrastructure actually exists. If there's a maintenance issue, teams know exactly where to go, and the maps gets updated because it's more like a real-time basis and georeference data. Instead of searching manually, GIS helps everyone work with accurate location-based information. So, GIS isn't just about making beautiful maps. Now that we have understood how GIS organize information, let's move one step higher into space. Because all those beautiful maps need data, right? And one of the biggest source of the data comes from the satellites. So, moving on to the next slide, here we have just learned how GIS helps organize information. Now, the next question is, where does that information come from? Where does that information come from? One major source is satellite imagery. Think of satellites as cameras orbiting the Earth. Now, and instead of taking selfies, the satellites, they continuously take pictures of our planet. Some satellites capture images that look very similar to photographs. Now, these are called optical satellites. They work just like the camera on your phone. They need daylight and clear skies. And so during cloudy weather or heavy monsoon seasons, they can't always see Earth's surface clearly. But now moving to radar satellites are different. Instead of using sunlight, they send microwave signals towards the Earth and measure the reflected signal. That means they can see through clouds. They also work at night, very hardworking, right? And this makes them extremely valuable during floods because floods often occur during cloudy weather. And let us talk about a great example from my home country, Nepal. After the major floods in September 2024, the United Nations used Sentinel-1 radar imagery to map flooded areas across Kosi and Madhya province, which was the most affected region of Nepal. And even while the weather remained cloudy, radar satellites were still able to capture useful information, as I said before. Within about a day, emergency teams already had maps showing where flood water had spread. That's something that would have taken much longer if people had relied only on ground surveys. But collecting satellite images is the only beginning. Let's see what happens next. Um, this slide summarizes the entire process. First, satellite capture images of the Earth's surface on regular schedule. Second, these images become available through free platforms such as Landsat or Sentinel. And third, GIS software helps us analyze and compare those images. Finally, the result supports real decisions. For example, should a village be evacuated? Where should relief materials be sent first? Which roads are likely to be blocked? Where should engineers build stronger flood protection? Notice something important. The final goal isn't simply creating a beautiful map. As I said before, and I repeat it again, the final goal isn't simply creating a beautiful map. The real goal is helping people make better decisions. Remember, the real goal is helping people make better decisions. Of course, aren't the only way to monitor disasters. Let's look at some other methods that experts use. You can see the list of the numerous methods usually which is used by the experts or which is used more common. So far, we have mainly talked about GIS and satellites, but in reality, disaster management combines several different tools. Satellite. Satellites help us observe large areas quickly. GIS, as discussed before, GIS helps organize and analyze all the information. Ground sensors collect real-time information. For example, river gauges measure water levels, rain gauges monitor rainfall, and similarly, some landslide-prone roads even have cameras that engineers monitor remotely. Here in Nepal, sections of the Narayan Ghat Mugling Highway, which is the mostly used highway and is prone to landslide. There, they use cameras and monitoring system because landslides frequently occur there during the monsoon. Similarly, weather models help predict future rainfall and river levels. Drone. Drones provide detailed image after disasters or in places that are difficult to reach safely. Community-based early warning, and finally, it is one of the most important methods. It involves the local communities. Sometimes the first warning comes from local people who notice rising water, unusual sounds, or cracks in the grounds. Like, as I said, as we discussed, the strongest early warning systems don't depend on just one technology. They combine all of this together. I would now like to show you one example from my own work where some of these ideas come together. And this is probably my favorite slide because it relates to my own research. The blue area here, can you see the picture? Yeah, okay. And the blue area in the picture represent the normal river channel, and the orange area shows how far the flood water can spread during a flood event. By comparing satellite images collected over different years, we can observe how river changes over time. Sometimes river widens, sometimes they shift their course, and sometimes flood water spreads much farther than expected. For my academic research, I have been studying river changes along the Narayani River, which is located in Nepal. So, to do this, I compare satellite imagery from different years. I also use Google Earth Engine for image processing, QGIS for mapping, and HECRAS for hydraulic modeling. Together, these tools help us understand how rivers behave and identify areas that may face higher flood risk. Although the software may sound advanced, the main idea is actually very simple. We are trying to answer one question: where is the water likely to go? It sounds so simple, right? It's somehow complicated to do this practically, but let us assume it is. But the main theme, main core objective is simple. Once we know that, we can better protect people and infrastructure. Now, some of you might be wondering, can I actually try any of these tool myself? The answer is yes, and most of them are completely free. Moving on to the next slide. Now that we have seen how GIS and satellite data are used, you might be wondering, can I actually try this myself? The answer is yes, absolutely yes. One of the things I love about this field is that you don't need an expensive laboratory or special equipment to get started. Many of the tools professionals use are either completely free or offer free versions. And the first one is Google Earth Engine. This is one of the most powerful platforms for working with satellite imagery. Everything runs in your web browser, so you don't need a high-end computer. Next is Google Earth. This is probably one of the easiest tools to explore. You simply open the website. If you want, I will later show you where to go and how to open it. So let me know in the comment. So you simply open the website, zoom to any location in the world, and view satellite image. It's great for beginners because you don't need any programming language. Similarly, talking about Sentinel Hub EO browser, it is also a beginner friendly platform. One feature I really like about this browser is its time slider. You can compare how the same location had changed over weeks, months, or even years. For example, you could observe how a flood spread, how vegetation changed after a wildfire, or how a city expanded over time. Uh, like that, USGS Earth Explorer is similar. If you'd like to download raw satellite images yourself, USGS Earth Explorer is a great place to start. Similarly, as uh, we have talked about GIS so many times, for mapping and analysis, I highly recommend QGIS. It's free, open source, and used by thousands of professionals around the world. If someone asked me where to begin learning GIS, QGIS would definitely be one of my first recommendations. And finally, ArcGIS Online lets you create interactive maps directly in your browser. There's a free version available, making it another excellent option for beginners. Of course, you don't need to learn all these six tools. Choose just one. Explore and spend around 5 to 10 minutes or 10 to 15 minutes, and then decide which one should you choose and which one is more aligned with my background and interest. So and then only work and become an expert and later give another session on this MYC crisis management. And but technology alone isn't enough. The most important part of the desired preparedness is still people. Similarly, sometimes when people hear words like satellite imagery or GIS, they think this sounds like something only scientists and engineers can do. But that's not true. Let me remind you again, that's not true. Every one of us have a role in building safer communities. The first point is talking about your role, my role, and our role. The first point is it starts with something very simple. Pay attention to your surrounding. If you notice flood marks or cracks in the ground, blocked drainage, or unusual river conditions, report them to the appropriate local authorities. And the second point, to be more responsible or to complete your roles and responsibilities, um, the another simple step is learning to read a hazard map. Many local governments and disaster agencies now publish hazard maps. I hope they can be found on their respective website. So, understanding whether your home, school, or workplace is located in a flood prone area can make a big difference during emergencies. Similarly, talking about the third point, and as I mentioned earlier, try exploring one free GIS or satellite platform. Don't worry about mastering it immediately. Curiosity is the first step. Remember, curiosity is the first step. And moving on to the fourth point, during disasters, accurate information becomes incredibly important. Unfortunately, misinformation spreads very quickly. We all have faced the consequences of the misinformation and on social media. So, before sharing any news, always try to verify it through reliable source. And the final and the foremost point is finally get involved. Join youth club or join youth organizations, volunteer with your local Red Cross, participate in community disaster preparedness activities. Personally, being involved with youth organizations have given me ample opportunities to learn from experts and meet people who are passionate about making communities more resilient. You don't need to wait until you become an engineer, scientist, or policymaker. You can start contributing to today and later to join on the MYC Crisis Management, or if they have some teams, Anusa will definitely let you know. If you are interested, then please drop a comment on the chat box. So before we finish, let's quickly revisit the three key ideas I would like you to remember. Moving on to the next slide. Uh, if you remember only three things from today's session, I hope they are this. First, first, GIS is simply a way of combining different layers of information to better understand what's happening in a particular place. Think of it as bringing different puzzle pieces together. And the second one is satellites give us regular observation of places we can't always monitor from the ground. They help us detect changes over time. And finally, when GIS and satellite imagery are combined, they become powerful tools for reducing disaster risk. They help us move from reacting to disasters to preparing from them. And perhaps the most encouraging part is this: most of these resources are freely available. Anyone with curiosity, internet access, and a willingness to learn can begin exploring them. Don't be late, rush towards it. And with that, I would like to conclude my today's presentation. That brings us to the end of today's session. Thank you all so much for your time, your attention, and your participation. I would also like to sincerely thank the MYC Crisis Management team for organizing this session and giving me the opportunity to share my learning journey with all of you. I truly hope today's discussion has shown that disaster management isn't only about responding after something happens. It's also about observing, understanding, and preparing before disasters occur. If today's session has spark your interest, I encourage you to explore one of the free tools we discussed. Who knows? This might even become the beginning of your journey into GIS, remote sensing, or disaster risk reduction. Thank you once again. I will now be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Susma. I think this was one of the most amazing sessions because you broke it down. You gave like a very simple way to understand about GIS, geographical information system. You started with that. You spoke about flood mapping, risk zoning, infrastructure planning, and why every water scheme is geo-referenced, GPS with GPS coordinates. Just to give a gist, you also spoke about types of satellites, different ways to read disaster, tools you can use for personal use, and how can we who are not experts in this start, right? And you also mentioned about reporting local hazards, or
Yes.
even reading a basic hazard map, understanding or verifying information from reliable sources. And I think everyone has a role, as you've mentioned, in building safer communities. And sessions like these, which MYC organizes, will definitely help us become more prepared and more informed. And I think this was one of those sessions where you broke it down into simple steps and gave it away. It definitely sparked my interest, and I'm sure it sparked audience's interests too. Thank you so much. Um, I think just today, I'd like to lead with two questions that I have, after which we'll open the floor for many more questions. My first question is, you spoke about one of the methods, along with several other methods, one of it which is weather and hydrological forecasting. I'd like to know more about it because weather that keeps changing. And so how do we understand, how do we, put together whether it is for the disaster awareness, how do we put this together in the whole aspect? And my second question is, how many techniques did you gather, because you've done your own personal research? How many techniques out of these did you gather to complete this research of yours, which is again wonderful?
Thank you so much. Like for the weather and hydraulic modeling, having the information about how much is the rainfall intensity and how was the weather, because during while downloading the satellite imagery, the presence of cloud also significantly impacts. Like if the day was too cloudy, the image might not get as clear as it should be. So the weather also affects significantly. And similarly, talking about the hydraulic modeling or hydraulic impacts, uh, the whole river channel system, talking about in my case, the whole river channel system depends on how much is the intensity of the rainfall, because it is eventually the flow of water and the quantity, the discharge is eventually linked to the rainfall intensity, right? So these linkages affect significantly, so we have to map the trends and understand the patterns, how it is affecting. So, and similarly, talking on the second question, it was about my research, right? It is it's still on progress. It hasn't been completed yet, but I'm still analyzing different tools. I'm still exploring different tools like HICRAS. You can use HICRAS for flood mapping or inundation mapping. It can visually present you, like if you have input all the required information or details, like how many intensity and how many intensity of the rainfall, how is the surrounding, in order to match the coefficient. So it if it is the LULC mapping, land use land cover mapping of any city area, it just maps how the river flows or how many area will be inundated using the HECRAS, right? And as discussed before, I used QGIS. QGIS is used for organizing and help to make people better decisions, right? So using the data and integrating from HECRAS and QGIS and the satellite imagery processed and downloaded from the Google Earth Engine. I analyzed and still doing the research. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Susma, for that. I think we already have two questions on the chat, which I'll read out for you. The
Okay.
first one being from Sandra. She
Yeah.
says, is there any predictive modalities for unusual major weather and the effect of severe flash flooding, eroding hills and mountain soil, and
Mm-hmm.
its added danger to lives on the ground?
Um, there may be some verified or validated model, but I'm not much familiar on the hill and mountain. But we can always measure weather and the effect of severe flash flooding, eroding hills, and there may be some predicted or validated model, but I'm not much familiar to it. I apologize. So, but we can, as I said before, HECRAS and there's HEC-HMS2, which help to which help in the hydraulic modeling and later, and yeah, similar like that.
All right, thank you for that. We have a question from Pallavi, and she asks, which other disasters can be mapped um, apart from floods through GIS?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Thank you, Pallavi. Beside floods, there are numerous research and landslide susceptibility mapping. Like we can, using Google Earth Engine or Google Earth, we can map the landslide prone area and predict where the landslide is going to occur. um, Using the details and using the data of land mass accumulated on any hill, like if this is the hill and here huge mass of soil or huge mass of soil is accumulated, then this prone, and if the steepness is so high, this area is likely to have landslide, right? It using numerous skills or numerous technologies, we can use landslide prone areas too.
Right. Thank you so much for that. I think the next question, we have a hand raised from Sarupya. Sarupya, can you please unmute and ask?
Yeah, hello. Thank you so much for your presentation, Sushma. It was so wonderful
Thank you
and
so
so
much.
informative as well. Yeah, it was really great and wonderful. So actually, I have a question. Rather, I have two questions. So my first question is, what are the different layers in GIS mapping and how are they decided?
Being based on what you need, the layers can be decided. Like if you are um, if you are mapping and analyzing a whole country map, then you need different shape files, like the country shapes, the country overall shape files, then districts, and on basis what do you need. Like if you are mapping a river, then you need the shape files of river, and similar like that. Yeah.
Okay, so your answer was really great and precise
Thank
and clear as well.
you.
Okay, okay, thank you so much. Yeah. And so my next question is, which GIS platform would you suggest to start learning at first? Like
As
for someone
I
who has no idea
Right.
about GIS platform, so which one should he learn first?
Thank you for the question. As I said before,
Yeah.
there are mainly widely used two tools. One is QGIS and another one is ArcGIS. ArcGIS is a paid of option, right? You can. It's not legal. Or it's not valid to say this in this platform, but you can get a cracked version or pirated version somewhere. But it is more effective to use QGIS as a beginners, because it is very beginner friendly and you can get numerous videos, YouTube videos, where you can learn. And if uh, yeah, if you have any questions, then you can feel free to ask to me.
Okay, thank you so much. So that was all from me, and yeah, please, and I'm really, really wonderful your presentation, the way you presented till
Thank
now.
you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Susma, for answering that. We have two, three questions in the chat, which I'll read out. Uh, the next question is from Hetal. She asks, what are the biggest gaps you see in disaster preparedness today? And how can technology help bridge these gaps?
Basically, there are numerous gaps. Let me be honest. First one is awareness, and second one is education. And I think, I don't know everywhere, but in most of the countries or in most of the cases, the government usually takes it as a light matter. What happens? Oh, it's natural. We can't predict. We can't do anything. That's not true. As I said earlier, nature always gives signals, right? So using this technology effectively and efficiently, and if the government prioritize awareing on the awareness and education program, this technology can really help in numerous cases.
Right. And we have next question from Kinga.
Mhm.
There are two questions from him. First is, how does GIS help before, during, and after a disaster?
Mhm.
And his second question, and the second question is, can GIS predict disaster, or does it mainly help manage them? So I think I'd like to add something here.
Yes.
As per my understanding, it does help predict disaster, and it also helps manage. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, okay. I think you need a little correction. As I discussed earlier, I have to repeat it. GIS is more like an organizing tool. You can't just predict, you can't just decide. The whole combination is used to use in before disaster, during, and after. GIS is just a tool to help manage and organize the data. It is not a tool that completely do the whole thing. Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think this is, I think, the last question,
Mm-hmm.
and it's by time on. So the question is, he first of all thanks you for the presentation, and he asks, how do you see technologies like drones and artificial intelligence improving disaster management in the future?
Thank you for the question, and very good question. Drone and as we all know, the significant use of artificial intelligence, the use has been widely, crazily increased. Drone helps us see the things which we can't see through eyes. Just if we if I want to map, or if I want to map, and if I want to visualize on the top of the hill, then if I try to go there, it will take hours to reach there. But just using drone and using the technology, it will definitely do the work efficiently and in a very small time. The artificial combining the artificial intelligence and drones will obviously help so much in reducing the disaster risk and helping in improvising the disaster risk preparedness. Similarly, Mm, the use of artificial intelligence will have a significant impact, uh, for sure. And yes, thank you so much for the question, Timon.
And I think we do have one more question that came in now. It's from Praneeth. And the question is, as a beginner in QGIS, could you recommend some specific YouTube videos or channels to start with? There are so many options available that he's not sure which ones are the most helpful.
I think this is not too valid to promote some YouTube channel or something. But I have learned, according to my journey, I will recommend you and you a YouTube channel. Is it okay? Is it
Yes,
okay?
yes.
Yeah,
Yes, perfectly okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay. On my preference, I started my QGS journey watching the video of Ujjwal Gandhi, I think, Spatial Thoughts. He have around 4 hour 15 minutes YouTube video, which is very beginner friendly and help you be an expert in it. Thank you, Praneeth, for the question.
Thank you, Susma, for answering all the questions. It was
Thank you
really
so
amazing, and your insights were really, I think very simple to understand and easy to start with.
much.
I think I'm sure that audience also felt very inspired and would definitely look into, entering these areas with more confidence now.
Mhm.
As you said, it's not just the engineers that would be, able to understand. Other people can also enter, and that's the first step. So thank you for sharing that. And I'd like to know if Mohanish wants to add something here.
I would just want to thank Susma for breaking such a technical topic into so simple so simple terms, and for taking out your time on a weekend for us. So really grateful for that. And actually, I also had no knowledge about this GIS platform, being a mechanical engineer still. So I also learned a very new topic today. So really grateful, really thankful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. The pleasure is mine. And if you guys need any help, you can always reach out to me. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Hope you guys will ace it. You guys continue to succeed and fulfill the objective you are starting. If any help is needed from my side, I'm always here. So thank you so much. I hope you all had a great time, and I hope it sparks your interest and curiosity. Let me know if you need any help. Thank you so much. And yeah, have a very good night, or good morning, or good day. Let- okay.
Thank you. We wish you all the very best, Sushma, from the whole team of MYC. And also to our audience, thank you for joining and listening to this series today. And until next time, take care, stay alert, aware, and active. Thank you.
Thank you so much.